Hello there. Welcome to episode 22 of Bow and Blade, a podcast brought to you by medievalist.net, your home for all things medieval on the internet. Bow and Blade gives you a seat at the bar as scholars of medieval warfare go beyond the Wikipedia articles to talk about the debates and the questions we're working on today. I'm Michael Livingston, professor at the Citadel, the Military College of South Carolina.
And I'm Kelly DeVries, professor of history at Loyola University, Maryland. Hey, Mike, welcome. 22,
Hey, what's up?
double twos.
22. And we
Wow.
had a wonderful guest on last time.
We did.
Had a great time.
Shout out to John. His book's
yeah.
out.
Book's out.
Book's out.
Go get it.
It is. Yeah, it's good. It's good stuff. And you've got an announcement. I mean, you finished a manuscript this week.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I finished the book. Yeah.
It's been a week since you finished the last one.
This one's not available for pre-order yet, but we'll be sure to let you know when it is. Just finished first draft on book on Agincourt. So
well done. Well done. Applause.
I've been lost. Yeah, been lost in 1415 for a while. It's been nice.
Yeah. Well, and then also great reviews on Origins of the Wheel of Time. Congratulations on that.
Good reviews. Thank you.
Well done.
We try to do the good business around here, and
the good business. What are you and Jeremy Black going to do? That good business where you produce a book a week, that sort of stuff.
I'll
Mike
take
is
his
prolific. All young scholars out there. Mike is the man to set as an example for your scholarship. Well done.
I'll sleep when I'm dead.
My friend. Well done.
Thank you. Very kind of you. I'm not sure it's healthy, but speaking of unhealthy, what are you drinking tonight at the bar, Kevin?
Oh yeah, well I'm in view of the fact that we're stepping back a bit, stepping down near Rome, was around Rome this summer, just for a week of walking around the city. I think I'm going to have a Roman area, a deep Roman area, red wine. I've got it double strength, I think, for entering battle at in the 4th century.
That's pretty good, man. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have an Amaro, a Nerone, L'Amaro di Roma. I'm gonna have myself a little bit of an herbal liqueur. Because, when in Rome.
Mike, by the way, Mike and I have a great restaurant we like in Rome. We go to.
Oh, my God.
That
has got to be one of my favorite restaurants in the world.
It is. And,
Cafe Nerone.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
But so it's amazing. And right down in fact, around the baths of Diocletian.
Well, it's it's near Termini Station. It's like really easy to get to. Wow, that place is so good. The best carbonara, maybe second best carbonara I've had in my life. Because you gotta rate these things, And I'd give it probably my second best.
Absolutely do.
Unbelievable. In the back of the restaurant, they've got the old Roman fountain.
Mm-hmm.
You can go get your
water
drink
fill. Yeah,
that's amazing. So good.
Absolutely.
Shout out to them. And look, if they would like for us to do a live podcast.
I don't think we've mentioned the name yet, by the way, of the restaurant.
From their restaurant, Cafe Nerone. In Rome. We would do it.
We would in a second. Absolutely. Great food.
Great
wine selection, not particularly expensive.
I guess I'm saying cafe. I think it was Ristorante.
It was Nerone is what you look for.
Yeah, Nerone. Yeah. But Ristorante now, I think, is what it is. Man, y'all, we would do it seriously. I would like the carbonara, please.
Yes, absolutely.
Good bottle. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Good night, everybody. And with that, we're done. No.
But we're going to talk. This is Rome. But probably the battle that we're going to get closest to Rome, maybe we'll do the sacking of Rome sometime out in the future, 410.
Maybe. Yeah. But this is really early for us.
It's early, and it's the one Mike, I get asked always my students in almost every class because they know my interests, and they'll say, "So, what major military event happened that we don't know a lot about, but we know it was very consequential?
Yeah.
So, and as decisive as you can get." And I always have to say, Battle of Milvian Bridge, Battle of Milvian Bridge, and this term I've been teaching Vita Constantini, which is really kind of interesting because I don't know how much of it's actual truth. You know, Eusebius, a good Christian guy, can write a biography of Constantine, leave out all the bad bits, you know?
All the bad stuff. Yeah, it's a big. I mean, it's a hugely important battle. You're absolutely right. No question.
Yeah.
And yeah, we know almost nothing about it.
About the actual battle, yeah.
This
Yeah.
is going to be interesting.
There's a
Yeah,
bridge.
there's a
There's a
bridge.
bridge.
It's still there, different bridge, but
Yeah.
we know where it was. Um, yeah, so this
Yeah.
this takes place in 312. Now we're going to start talking before that.
Yeah. Yeah. Go
I'm
back
trying to
to
set the stage here. So
284. Yeah.
yeah, so let's start there. In 284, we get a new emperor, Diocletian.
Diocletian. He'd been
Uh,
the general in the Danubian area. This is the third century, so generals are getting put into the emperorship by their armies, and then somebody else's army will come put them in the emperorship. There's there is, I think, one 13th century admiral or third century third century emperor who dies in of natural causes. Just one. And there's one other who may have been hit by lightning, or killed by his troops, or killed by
yeah,
side. But
the
this is
crisis of the third century is well
oh
named.
my heavens,
Is well named.
Shapper at one point has, I mean, he's got one of the admirals, or one of the emperors. I don't know. I've got admiral in my mind. One of the emperors, Valerian. I mean, he uses him as a stepping stool to get on his horse, and he's captured this old emperor and holds it for a year. And while he's using him as a stepping stool, the emperor has to stand, or he has to kneel in front of him, and so Strapper could put his legs on top of him, and then he dies. The emperor probably isn't fed very well or anything. He dies and he gets stuffed, or he's a rug. He's made no rug. So Shapper, and
Tomato,
that's
tomato.
yeah, that's the one that isn't killed by his own troops, which most of them are. Most of the rest of them are assassinated by their own troops. So
It was a rough time.
it
I
was
mean,
a
a
rough time.
rough time.
Yeah,
Like a half century of just bad.
yeah, yeah.
And
I mean,
into all that comes
comes
Diocles.
Diocletian, yeah, and
Diocletian. He gets the name.
he gets the
Born
name. Yeah,
Diocles.
Diocletian becomes the emperor, and he's different. I mean, there's no question he's different. He's willing to do the hard things, but within 5 years, he also recognizes what everybody should have recognized, and that is that the empire is really too big for one man to rule. So he brings Maximian on. Another general brings him on as a co-ruler. They
Mm-hmm.
divide the empire in two, and that goes for another few years. I think it's 290 that they bring on two junior emperors. So they were called the junior emperors called Caesars, others are called Augustuses, and
Mm-hmm.
so they bring on two new ones, Galerius and Maximian Dia, and then Constantine retires. He just steps down. I'm done.
Just gives it a shot. Says I'm
Yeah,
just gonna chill out now.
and that's 305, and that, I mean, again, it's a great move. Now he tells Maximian, okay, we're both stepping down. Maximian retires to his palace in Milan. Diocletian to his palace in Split. Uh, and Diocletian actually just dies. I mean, later he lives for a number of years, but then he just dies. And yeah, he kind of like the only emperor does, but he's done all this other stuff. He's brought them all on. And the only real error is at that point they've left the choices to their successors to pick the next two Caesars, and that's when we get Constantius and one. And I think, boy, I'm missing one of the other Caesar. I may have had the Caesars mixed up here anyway. But in picking up Constantius and
So it's
they
it's Diocletian, Galerius, Maximian, and Constantius
and
are the
Constantius, yeah,
four
yeah,
are the four big fellows.
that's right, that's
Um,
right. They're brought on Valerius and Diocletian, yeah. So
yeah.
scratch that off.
But yeah, these four. I mean, they've the tetrarchy. It's called.
Tetrarchy,
Uh,
beautiful
yeah.
statue in Venice of them
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
they
So you got
stole
the four
from
heads,
Constantinople, but
and yeah, they split the empire up. This allows for more regional control. Because at this point, you're talking about an empire that stretches from, um, modern Turkey, and that end of the
yeah,
of the Mediterranean, Egypt, then all the way to the other side of the Mediterranean, to the Atlantic. Right. This is
right,
Spain. This is
yeah,
also France,
yeah.
Britain now, Britannia, Italia, and everything in between. And then of course the Germanic border. Always some question marks of what might be happening there. It's a lot to try and
Yeah.
administrate from a single location under a single person. So this is a brilliant idea,
Well, it
right?
is a brilliant idea. But what it means is you have to pick the right personnel. And I think those four are probably okay. And probably, they didn't have a lot of difficulties or anything like that, those four. But they're not, and they marry each other's families to make the ties bigger, divorce their early mothers. So in fact, Constantius divorces Helena to marry into the other family, connects them all. Galerius is in Thessaloniki. Diocletian is in Split. Constantius is in Trier. So they live in the areas that they're actually controlling and governing, but they also don't recognize that once Diocletian and Maximian retire, then they bring two more in. Who do they bring in that is going to be as peaceful as the others? And that's when they get into trouble. Bottom line is that they're the two most capable younger generals in the entire Roman Empire as Constantius' son Constantine, and Maximian's son Maxentius. And probably because they don't want to be so nepotistic, they leave him out. But that means you've got four people running the empire and two on the outside who wonder why they're not running the
Right, and have a claim, on the sense of, look, my dad was in that position.
empire.
Why am I not in that position? And have armies behind them. They have the
Yeah,
weight of military force, and are capable military leaders as well. I mean, especially
yeah,
Constantine.
yeah. Well,
Um,
Maxentius is too. I mean, he's controlling he controls Rome, and I mean, he's got the armies that are around southern Italy, Sicily. He's in fairly good shape, and then Constantine up in Britannia and Gaul. I mean, he's a capable leader under his father. It probably would have been okay. They probably would have bided their time, but then in 306, Constantius dies in Trier,
in Trier, and
and
at this point,
yeah.
I mean, could we say kind of all bets are off? I mean,
Well, yeah,
at
it
this
is
point,
all
there's more
bets.
power to be grabbed now.
Yeah, it's the first one of these the tetrarchy that's died in office. So there isn't a precedent means of replacing him, and there's two really capable younger people they could bring in, Constantine and Maxentius, but there's no means of suggesting that they come in. And in fact, when Galerius and meets with the other emperors, they have a different candidate in mind. But news has also reached York, where Constantine is, as fast as it's gone to
Eboracum
Rome.
at that point.
Eboracum,
Um,
as
yeah,
fast as it has hit Rome.
yeah.
And Constantine says, "Fine, I'm my dad's successor, and I'm not going to be a successor at the lower level. I'm going straight into his position. I'm going to be an emperor."
straight to Augustus, like
Yeah,
going to the top,
going to the top.
going to the top, and yeah, is proclaimed on the 25th of July, 306. He is proclaimed Emperor Augustus
By
in
himself, by the
York,
way.
as
Himself
one
and his
does,
soldiers, you know.
as one does.
Everybody else
Uh,
up in New York says, yeah, go ahead. You can
Go
be
ahead,
it.
buddy. And what's actually kind of cool is, I mean, there's lots of things that are cool, but this is not the only cool thing in the world. In York, you got to go to York Minster. It's
Oh, it's fun.
amazing.
Yeah.
It is such an amazing place. Beautiful, extraordinary, moving. But make sure you go to the Undercroft and get under there, because the work that they have done to, first of all, like engineering wise, to stabilize that is really cool.
Yeah,
Um,
that
and
amazing.
they talk about that, and
Yeah.
it's really cool that they did that. But also that they have, in kind of doing that work, they also preserved a bunch of archaeology
Mhm.
under
Yeah.
there, and you can like see kind of like the corner of the building that was where he did that, like where
Yeah.
that proclamation
Yeah.
was made. Like there's, you're like kind of walking over on glass, and like that's the corner of the building. Check it
Yeah.
out.
Well, they have a sign
It's
that
pretty neat.
says, I mean, I remember the sign, and it probably did the same thing because, we're medievalists. We're kind of medieval nerds. So we really like these sort of things. And there's a sign saying, near here in 306, Constantine declared himself Emperor of Roman Empire. And you go, okay, now that's cool. That is
It is
cool.
very cool.
Yeah, I mean,
It
I
is
was
very cool.
yeah, when I was in grad school is when that burned. That York Minster burned. Remember everybody was sitting there, practically in tears as graduate students. We're never going to be able to see York; it'll be in ashes and so forth. And they preserved it. They're doing the same with Notre Dame, Paris. They preserved it, but it was very nice that they actually found that the basilica that Constantine had declared himself emperor, they were on the cathedral wasn't straight on top of it. It was across it, and so you do have those archaeological remains. You can see the Roman building, and
Yeah,
near
yeah.
here
You can
is
see
where
the
Constantine declared
Roman,
himself.
center of the Roman camp there, and then the basilica gets put on top of it, and then another thing, and then a minster, and the minster. It's cool. They got
Yeah,
good stuff there.
it does make you wonder if it hadn't burned, if the thing would have just fallen into the ground one day. They would have walked out, and the whole building come down like the end of
Uh,
James Bond Casino Royale.
it's
Oh, look, the minster's going into the ground.
it's going
Um,
down.
but it was,
Uh,
yeah, it's cool. He's long.
yeah,
That's a long way from Rome.
it's a long way from Rome, though. I mean, this
Yeah.
is the problem. Like he and his troops. Well, he and then his troops are backing him up. Uh, yeah, you're in charge. Okay,
Mm,
cool.
mm,
Cool story, bro.
yeah.
What are you gonna do? Like,
What does this mean?
we're
You
a
get it.
long way from there.
That's
There's
right.
we got to cross
There,
the English
there,
Channel. Like,
yeah.
there's a long way.
Yeah, don't make your wreath out here. Poison ivy. I don't think we have any garlands of anything else in
Me,
northern York.
meanwhile, in
Meanwhile,
Rome itself, um, Maxentius,
hmm
who's the son of Maximian, Maxentius is like, no, really, I'm it.
yeah, yeah, I'm the guy.
And I'm the guy. Now he does that later. It's in October that he does that.
Yeah, yeah,
But of course he's literally there, as opposed to in York, in a Boricum, right?
yeah,
So he's got home field, I guess, in that sense, you might say. Now, not everybody agrees
yeah.
that Maxentius should be emperor. So what kind of happens next, Kelly?
Well, I mean, it's just not we just don't know. I mean, unfortunately, this is where the records break down. We only have them from Constantine, post-Constantinian victory. But it seems that Maxentius is not completely favored. His father is
Yeah,
retired. I mean, and Maxentius asks Maximian. It appears that he asked Maximian to play a role in getting him in this position. But you're right about the distance in time, the distance in place, the fact that Constantius has died in Trier doesn't help matters much. I mean, that news has got to come through the Alps, so it gets there late. And there's some uncertainty as to what these other emperors are going to, whether they want somebody he was going to have that power given them by their father or directly come through their father. And in the case of Constantine or in the case of Maxentius, that's what's happened. So does that mean they step up and are now Galerius, who's been in there the longest, is he going to be sidelined by the new younger group coming in?
And where are they in the pecking order, right? Because Galerius says, Constantine sounds great, but not as Augustus. No, man. No. As Caesar, okay, maybe, but you don't get to go Augustus. You don't get to go straight there.
No.
But even so, he also is saying, like, look, Maxentius, no go. And so when the co-Augustus, there's so many of them at this point.
Yeah.
Severus. Yeah. Severus gets sent in 307. He marches into Rome to try and knock Maxentius away. Get him stop this. They think it's a usurpation, and so try to get him out. But when Severus shows up,
well.
his army leaves him.
Yeah, that's a problem if you're going to get. We talk about the goat. Who's the goat of Roman military mind at this point? Well, it's got to be Maxentius. Constantine doesn't have a lot of troops. He's not. He's in the north. He's fighting it completely different. Maxentius has got all the southern Italian troops, and plus, his name is well known, and his father's name up in northern Italy. So Severus walks in, and thanks for bringing me an army.
Yeah, thanks for the army. His army just defects, and Severus is like, what the hell?
Yeah.
And Severus gets captured, thrown in prison. Do we know how he was executed?
No, but we could, there were some, it probably was just, in the middle of the night. Here, Severus, put your head against the wall. We'll just take it off. I don't know if there was anything formal done because that would have really disrupted things. Now we do have two spots open anyway, so that we could fit both Constantine and Maxentius in. But
I just looked up. Lactantius reports that he was permitted to kill himself by opening his veins.
Okay,
so we do have that potential.
Right,
I mean,
Lord
knows.
Potential.
Lord knows if that's true or not.
Yeah,
but,
I don't know, but it does mean that there's two absentees right now. Two absents on the.
We got some openings.
Yeah.
Don't try not to be careful about bringing an army to your enemy. Life lesson, kids: don't hand your army to the enemy.
It does make me wonder. I mean, when we start thinking about these things, because there isn't a lot filled in. I mean, we have Maxentius, we have Eusebius, and we have to take Eusebius with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
But I really wonder why it is that the troops seem to really think Maxentius is great. He has no problem getting troops. Constantine doesn't seem to have any problem getting them from the north either. But Severus is not well liked, and then you've got on the other hand, you don't have Maxentius or Constantine welcomed into this group, which, especially after Severus is dead, you've got two places. Why not rearrange things?
Yeah, well, I mean, at this point, hackles are up, right?
Yeah.
Right, things are bad. As to how is Maxentius able to raise these forces and everything so quick? I've always just assumed it was money. Like he's got.
Oh yeah,
he took control of Rome, right?
Yeah.
He's got the cash.
Well, you can tell by so we do have right next to the Colosseum. This is another thing I took a great look at because I wanted to, but there is the palace that he starts building. Constantine will finish it, so it has that really weird, palace of palace of Maxentius and Constantine. So there's certainly Rome has accepted him as their emperor, whatever the tetrarchy decides.
Right.
But I think you're right. I mean, he's got wealth, but he's also got. I think he has the personal, the proximity has got to be a big one.
Yeah, and maybe he's a charismatic dude too. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of hard to say. And look, part of the reason why it's hard to say some of the things is because of what happens after Milvian
Yeah.
Bridge,
Yeah.
in that we have a damnatio memorii, that a lot of this stuff was like permanently, intentionally erased, which leaves us in some like, well, we're
Yeah.
missing a lot of stuff. Yeah, because they got rid of it. So it does make it a little bit hard to get
I've
some of the
always
stuff.
wondered,
But
though, why is it Maxentius, once he does, I mean, Cyrus goes to him, uh, why he doesn't leave Rome? So, I mean, well, putting together this picture, we've got to say, okay, Eusebius is going to, anybody post Constantine is going to elevate Constantine and bury Maxentius as much as they can. But so we assume there's got to be a lot of more power, a lot more wealth, but he doesn't never leave Rome. I mean, the Roman Empire is not Rome, the city, anymore. In fact, it could be argued that the city of Rome is far less than what Thessaloniki has become under Galerius, or what Milan has become
well, yeah, I mean, I
under
was going to say that
Maxentius.
the seat of that district is Milan, not Rome.
It's in Milan, and
Um,
and you can see now Milan. There's very few bits of Maximian's palace still left. There's quite a bit of Galerius's over in Thessaloniki. These are major, capitals of the leadership. And Maxentius, certainly with his construction of a palace there next to the Colosseum, he's making a bid for the same in Rome. But the armies come to him, and that's the thing. When Constantine is on his own road, whether he thinks he's going to end up in Rome, and he thinks that the only one he's going to be fighting is Maxentius at that point, because we're looking at 312. A lot is happening in the next 5 years.
yeah, I was going to say, I mean, Constantine, he does not march on this direct.
No, no,
For a while, he seems to be biding his time, probably gathering, his own authority and strength, before he dives essentially across the Alps,
yeah, yeah,
right? Which at that point, kind of the die is
yeah,
cast. But before that, he is spending a lot of time, just gathering strength, so that by the time he does come down in 312, I mean, our sources say anyway, he's got an army that's tens of thousands strong.
yeah, yeah. Although smaller than Maxentius, it's still
Yeah.
really quite
Now,
small. Yeah,
I mean, was it truly that big? Obviously, we always have these debates about numbers, but the point is, it's big. I mean, it is
it
a
is big.
very
Yeah,
large army.
yeah,
He is outnumbered, but he's got a huge army, and he's going to need it. He's
yeah,
going to need it. If you're
yeah.
going to
He's going to need it.
dislodge somebody from Rome, like, Rome's a pretty decently fortified place in the fourth century.
He
It
is.
is.
Yeah,
It is nicely fortified. With of course the river to help, which comes into play with this battle.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's a difficult thing to just come and take.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
the walls have been repaired by Aurelian, so they in the very end of the third century. So they're fairly new, very strong, and there's not a lot of suburbs outside the rivers. One of the things about it is the river's hard to go across. I mean, it has a number of bridges, Milvian being one of them. But so yes, it's pretty protected. I think you're right. I think well, what happens is he goes to Trier, and that's where he organizes his forces. He brings what he can out of Britannia, but he doesn't. The interesting Britannia isn't left without troops at this point. They're not going to
yeah.
move completely out until the beginning of the fifth century. So he at least leaves garrisons behind him, and then he goes to Trier. We know he builds the basilica at that time, which still stands, and that's extraordinary to see. The place where Constantine actually was delivering judgments and doing certain things. But I think at that point, that's where he's gathering troops. He's gathering troops from all over Gaul, along the Rhine, bringing them all in from various areas. I think he has troops coming in from Spain that are coming up to Trier.
Hmm.
So his army is going to get bigger, and that's one thing we rarely think of because it is happening rather fast. He seems patient. Constantine seems patient. And maybe that's the attribute that I'm missing with Maxentius. Why he's not coming out of Rome is he's being patient. He's gathering troops there too. He knows the fight of both of them know the fight has essentially got to come to them first,
Yeah.
and that
Yeah.
may
I mean,
be
it's
it.
who's gonna bring it to the other guy.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
and as I kind of already gave away, I mean, in the timing of things, it is Constantine who makes the move,
Yes, yeah.
and
Goes
does
to
it by
Maxentius.
coming south.
Well, it kind of opens up to him. I mean, I was trying to look at the dates when Galerius dies, and um, but it's 306 is when Constantius dies, and 306 later on in the year is when Constantine becomes emperor, or declares himself emperor, we should say.
Close himself. Yeah.
Yeah, Severus in 307. So, but Galerius, he also marches on Rome. I mean, they definitely see Maxentius as the biggest enemy here because of the Roman location, and he doesn't win. But by he dies, and so there's really nobody but Constantine Maxentius. So they're both usurpers are the only ones that are still alive at this point. 312.
Yeah. I mean, you'll have some other people that are making claims
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
down the road, but yeah, for this moment, this is kind of a two-dog fight, and both dogs know it.
And that may
And
be how we keep it is, we just don't have a lot of information about who is maneuvering against whom. But by 312, there are two dogs in the fight, and they're
yeah,
big dogs. One of them is Constantine, with his army coming down from Trier into Italy, and then all the way to Rome. And
yeah,
Maxentius staying in the protection of Rome. Can't blame him until
yeah,
Constantine is on the outskirts.
yeah. Constantine coming down. All roads lead to Rome, so you
Mm-hmm.
just got to pick one.
Yeah, just got to pick one.
Uh,
Yeah, yeah, he
you know,
does. He picks the main
take,
one.
he picks the big daddy, and so he's coming. If you were to kind of look on a map, if you will, if you don't know where Milvian Bridge is, if you're familiar at all with Rome, the Tiber River snaking its way along. Basically, if you headed dead north from like the Castel San Angelo, the Vatican, head up the river about 2 kilometers, 2.5 kilometers. That's the Milvian Bridge.
Yeah.
That's where one of the main roads in and out of Rome, been a main road for
Mm-hmm.
as long as there have been main roads in and out
Yeah.
of Rome.
It goes. It's the road that goes to Milan. It's the road that goes to the passes, goes to Trier, and it's the road that goes all the way up to
the
essentially up to York, and the wall.
the Via Flaminio, and
Mm-hmm.
and this is where it crosses the Tiber River, is at Milvian Bridge. There is, as Kelly said, there is still a bridge there today.
Yeah,
It's
not
a
the bridge.
beautiful old bridge. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
not the bridge, but it's a beautiful old bridge. You can walk it. It's very lovely. It's very
it's
lovely.
it's
Take
now
pictures.
it's now in all practicality in Rome. It's
Yeah,
no longer just on the outskirts. It's in the city now. Always seems
and
weird that this battle that was essentially fought on the outskirts of Rome is now. Wait a
yeah,
second, go down
you
and have
fought
a
it in
pizza.
Rome.
You know,
But yeah, this is outside, as Kelly's saying, and Maxentius has a decision to make.
yeah,
Like, he knows Constantine is marching. He knows he's on the way. He's coming down this road. There's no questions about this. What is he going to do? And Maxentius decides to do the sort of thing that we have in previous podcasts say you probably ought not to do.
right.
He does what, if you listen to our podcast on the Battle of Najera, he does what they screw up,
Hmm.
which is he decides to fight on the enemy's side of the river instead of using the river itself as part of his frontage.
Yeah,
He crosses the river in order to fight on the other side, and actually even kind of like more than that. It looks like he first thought he was going to fight with the river in front of him, and so he'd knocked down the bridge, but then changes his mind and decides, no, let's cross the river.
yeah,
So he has to build what we think is like a pontoon bridge
yeah.
to
That
cross
was a
over.
hard. He's done something to allow him to cross.
Yeah.
Uh, Probably means that Constantine had the same ability to do this. I've tried to think about what would be the motive. Why would Maxentius come out of the walls and everything like this? I think that that his mind, there's certainly a pride. Well,
Yeah.
he's got a small army. I'm the big cheese down here. I've been able to defeat Galerius. I've been able to defeat Severus. Look, all of
Yeah.
this stuff has got to be going on in his mind. But I also think that it's not just pride anymore. I think for some of these generals, in this case, Maxentius, if Constantine's army gets across the bridge, now he's got to worry about Rome. If they get inside the walls, that's a whole different game. And especially, I can imagine Maxentius thinks that he would lose a lot of favor if Rome gets hit badly, either if it has to withstand a siege, or if you know they were able to get in. And I'm sure that there are some attendants inside Rome because of what next happens. I'm sure there's
Mm.
some that would have maybe let Constantine in. Either Maxentius has upset them, or as we'll see, it may have been something completely different. But once the army is in, now the citizens are going to get there's going to be damage to the city
Yeah.
and the
But
people.
he could have held the bridge on the opposite. You don't have to like.
Yeah.
It's not either they get into the city or you cross the bridge. You can also just stay at the other end of the bridge and like, yeah, sure, come
Mhm.
across this bridge. Good luck, man. Like, how many wide across are you? 10 dudes? Like, come on.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that I this is one of these things I can't even fathom. Nahara, I could kind of get my head around as we talked through it. Like, you kind of get the idea, that they'd put off battle for so long that it was becoming like a necessity to fight, whether that was from pride or whatever, to sort of show no, I am willing to fight, that I can no longer do kind of a Fabian strategy or whatever. I've got to fight, and so I'm going to do it. It was still stupid, but you could kind of like see how they got there.
Yeah.
Here it just seems so sudden that Maxentius is like, yeah, let's just go across this bridge
Mhm.
and fight with our backs to the river. And look, fighting with your backs to the river, maybe he thinks, which would be kind of surprised, but maybe he thinks that his men are in danger of running away, and so having the backs to the river, they're not going to run away. Like we saw that, of course, with a battle in an earlier podcast as well. But I don't know. That doesn't really seem to fit with these armies.
Now,
It's
I
just
wonder if
very
it.
strange.
Yeah, I think part of the problem is we don't have a good chronology at this point, so we don't know what's happened. Constantine gets through the Alps in the spring of 312. He takes on Turin. He takes on Verona. He wins in both those battles. So and it doesn't seem to be slowed. It's not going to take him, 4 months, 5 months to get to Rome. So is it possible that he's sitting on the other side of the river for a while, and or even that Maxentius that he's coming, and Maxentius wants to draw the army to him in a specific place? I mean, I can see if Constantine comes onto the river and there's no bridges across it, that he builds his own pontoon bridges, but he crosses in several different places. Now, Maxentius's army is spread out. So it may
I
be
don't know.
that
Yeah,
simple. We just don't. Well, unfortunately, we don't know when Constantine actually gets there.
yeah,
We
we
don't
don't.
know. So there's got to be time in between spring of 312 when Constantine is in Italy to October of 312 where Battle of Milvian Bridge is fought. That these decisions are made by Maxentius that seem to be erratic. Burn the bridge, no, build the bridge,
Yeah,
and
it's really odd.
yeah, yeah. But I think ultimately, I think he wants to bring the battle to where he wants to fight it. And if he can get his troops across the bridge, then they both have their backs to it. They have their to the river. They have but they've also got perhaps the battlefield. That if he crosses the river and makes Constantine come to him. And I wish our sources just gave us some knowledge that that was right or wrong.
Yeah. It is truly strange to me. I mean, and the landscape on the north side of the river there is much more isn't as flat as it is on the south side of the river,
Yeah.
where Maxentius started. So it also is kind of, I don't know. It's just strange. It's just strange to me.
And that
And we don't know.
No, and that answer may be that Constantine has more cavalry, and Maxentius wants to fight with infantry because the cavalry are going to be disrupted by the lack of flat terrain, and infantry can maneuver a little bit easier. That may be it too, because Constantine's going to have cavalry coming out of Britain and coming out of Gaul. Those are going to be big cavalry areas.
Yeah.
Lots of horses, lots of other things. We don't know. Okay, let's then address the elephant in the as it is, the elephant in the sky in this case.
That's Hannibal. You're confusing things, man.
Somewhere. So the other possibility is that Constantine undermines the loyalty of Maxentius's troops by signifying that he's accepted Christianity.
Okay. So, yeah, there is a story.
Story, yes.
Kids.
It's a good one.
Gather around ye.
It's a good one.
And listen to this story. There's actually 3 different stories and they don't match, but we'll ignore that.
Well, yeah, ignore it. And ignore also that Constantine tried one other deity before, but
yeah, he goes through them. You do what works. So he has supposedly a vision. Now exactly what the vision was kind of depends on who's telling the story.
Yeah,
but he sees,
and when it also. It's come to be that he gets this the night before the battle. But as my students will always point out, that doesn't give him enough time to do what he does evidently in the next 3 or 4 hours after the vision comes, which is transform his entire, all of the designs on his shields and his banners overnight.
Yeah.
So I tend to believe that this was probably, if it did happen, if there was a vision, we'll talk about that in just a moment. But it happened earlier than the night before the battle.
Yeah, but the popular account is it's the night before the battle. Like he knows he's going to be fighting the next day, and is like thinking, oh, man, it's going to be rough, and has a vision in which he sees some kind of sign, and then hears the words or sees the words. I think we have stories both ways.
We have stories both ways, yeah.
That by this sign you'll be victorious.
Mm-hmm.
In Greek, but y'all know what I mean.
Yeah.
So
because the visions only come in Greek.
They only come in Greek. Yeah. Only in Greek. It's not, you really don't want to see this kind of thing, like in Old English or something. So
a Persian.
So yeah, he gets this vision. Either it's essentially a Latin cross, which is sort of an upright cross, like you kind of think about, just with a little knob at the top, or it's a Cairo.
Yeah.
Which people, that's the X with kind of a really elongated P over top of it.
The Greek chi with the shepherd hook. God, it's supposedly at this time a well-known symbol representing God the shepherd.
Yeah. It's the first two letters of the word Christ.
Yeah.
The chi and the rho. And so yeah, this could have been it. There's other people that say it's something else.
Mm-hmm.
But he has some sort of sign that according to one of the stories, at first he doesn't even know what the hell it is. He's like, I don't know what that is. And then Jesus appears to him and says, no, this is what it is. He's like, oh, right on. And
it helps when the actual God comes out and says, let me interpret what you're seeing.
You didn't get it?
You're kind of doubting for a moment here.
You didn't get it? Come on, man. All right, here's the Cliff Notes. And so now he knows by this sign of Christianity, you'll be victorious. And as Kelly and his students alluded to, He then like supposedly changed all the sigils on everything, all the signs that they're wearing on their shields, they have on their banners, to have this sign, thereby sort of saying like we're fighting for Christianity.
Yeah, fighting on the side of Christ.
And yeah, does that undermine Maxentius and his capabilities if he's got a bunch of Christians in his army? Well, that depends on how many Christians there are.
Well, this is
in
the
his
problem
army
too, because I kind of wonder sometimes. This is why I think it happens if there is a changeover, that this is a strategic decision that's made earlier. Because I think that at a certain moment, he can't have these things appearing. I mean, what if you're a Mithras guy, and you wake up and everybody's got these Christian symbols around? Are you going to say,
right.
"Oh well, hey, I feel kind of uncomfortable here. I'm going to go over to Maxentius, or maybe I'll sit this one out. You guys let me know if your God wins."
I thought I was fighting for Sol Invictus. What's going on here,
so
man?
exactly.
What is happening?
Was it Sol Invictus, the one he saw up there before Verona or something?
Yeah.
So it can work both ways. But I think if he's got his army used to the idea that his personality, whatever, they're going to be putting these symbols up, it's a strategic decision, and it does undermine Maxentius's forces, because there apparently are a fairly large number of Christians within Maxentius's army that are not going to want to fight against Christ.
Yeah.
And that, I wonder then, is that why Maxentius is coming out of the city of Rome? Because he doesn't want the Christians within Rome to open the gates to Constantine once he comes across. He also needs to get his army out in disciplined units that when they see this, don't say, "Oh well, screw you, dude. I'm heading over to the side with my God." And that he can control better with military discipline. But
it's an interesting
it's
question,
got to disrupt
man.
things.
I don't know.
Both Lactantius and Eusebius come out and it's like, oh, he joined Christianity, so of course that's why he wins, And you think, yeah, what if they had one?
Which, if so, he actually doesn't convert for a while. But
yes, well,
he's got to kill some family members first.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the first bad. Somebody had taught him a little bit too well. Your sins are all forgiven you. He puts off his baptism until he's at the deathbed.
Until he's his deathbed. Like, clean slate, baby.
Yeah.
Love it.
Don't you imagine that St. Peter's at the gate and Constantine comes up and goes, and he says, "Oh, Constantine, I got a huge drawer full of sins for you, man." He opens his drawer and it's all gone.
It's all gone. What happened? Gotcha.
Well, come on in.
I read the fine print.
You killed your wife, you killed a son. Well, no, come on in.
Constantine the Great, man, read those fine prints. That's an interesting idea. Like, is that what's going on? I mean, that then implies that like Maxentius wasn't possible to be like, no, I'm fighting for Christianity too. Like, kind of flip the tables on him. We don't know. We don't know.
No.
We don't know what the hell happened. But Maxentius does decide that he is going to, go to the other side of the Tiber, onto Constantine's side of the Tiber, and that there he's going to make his stand. He's gonna stand right in his way. Battle formation, come at me, and that's what we get. And we get a battle on the northern side of the Tiber, just north of the Milvian Bridge. Exactly where? Don't know. It's got to be close enough. The river plays a major role in the battle, or at least in the outgoing of the battle.
Yeah. Well, Maxentius can't get back into the city. He can't retreat.
Yeah, and it appears that he's so close to the river that it may be preventing him from reorganizing his forces and things like that.
Yeah.
If you're kind of too hemmed in and you don't have kind of freedom of movement in your own backfield, you can't move units around and reinforce where necessary, and so that can be a problem. And it appears that he has that problem, which would mean that not only did he cross the river, but he was really tight to the river. Which again, I'm like, what are you doing, dude?
Well, and this is
Um,
where so I went to the Arch because I knew we were going to be given this. So in the summer I
uh,
went to the Arch, and
mhm.
we know a lot of the stuff is stolen off of various other monuments, but there's this panels right in the middle that deal with the Battle of Milvian Bridge. And one of the things it shows, and that I mean, I thought about it and been pointed out, is it does show a force that must come at the end of the battle of Constantine's cavalry finishing off, essentially pushing Maxentius's troops into the river.
Yeah,
Um, and so maybe that's what's happened. Maybe the thought was we're going to go into this rough terrain, but along the riverbank it's going to be pretty flat, and that's where the cavalry is going to make a difference. And the Constantine, because again, we're just guessing on these things. Unfortunately, Eusebius, oh, God gave him the victory. That's all we have to
yeah,
say. Maxentius, God gave him victory. That's all we have to say. But it does appear that Constantine uses his cavalry in a way that will finish Maxentius's army off. That means he cannot reorganize after some
yeah,
initial conflicts. It's good as we can get, really. And
yeah. Which is so frustrating. Anybody who's
yeah,
read my books knows I'm like I say it every friggin' time. A battle is its crown, and you can't really understand it unless you know certain facts. Like that's where we are here.
yeah.
We
Well,
don't we don't really
we
know.
know the ground. Unfortunately, we don't know we don't know the units. We don't know how many. We don't know what their formations were. I mean,
Yeah,
is
and it's
Maxentius?
ground-ish. Like we
Yeah,
don't.
we know it's
Yeah, you can't.
groundish. Yeah, I mean, of course, but
Um, yeah, and so as things are going bad for Maxentius, like whatever hits, it's probably Constantine's cavalry hits him first, and Maxentius' ranks start to break. This is bad, especially if you cannot reinforce to fill in those gaps.
yeah,
And as he can't, he starts needing to fall back. But now you're on the wrong side of the river.
yeah,
So you have the choke
yeah,
point behind you that you're having to try and get through. This is exactly what we saw happen at Nahara, where that everybody's trying to funnel back through this choke point, and ends up, everybody's getting collapsed in, and hardly anybody can get across. People are trying to get through the river in their desperation, and Nahara, like almost everybody probably drowns because the river's so high.
yeah.
In fact, in this battle, Maxentius drowns. Like that's what happens to him.
Yeah, that appears. I mean, it appears that they're trying to get him back across, and you know, even if you're a good swimmer, even if you can divest any heavy armor to get into the water and get across, it's going to be people are going to be trying to keep you from doing it, and
Yeah,
Maxentius is going to be seen in that way.
yeah. And either he's trying to swim it, or there's these stories about them trying to cross the bridge and the bridge collapsing,
Yeah, yeah,
either because it has too much weight on it, or it was this kind of temporary construction that can't handle it, or it was designed. There's even a theory that it was designed to fail. It was planned to be used against Constantine, but now it's
yeah.
now it gets like tripped against Maxentius and company.
Yeah, I'm a little
There's
bit
a story.
suspicious about that. I don't think you build a
I am
bridge.
too. I am too. I think there's a story that Maxentius gets thrown from his horse
Yeah,
into the river.
hmm yeah,
Which I mean, well, not maybe not the collapsing bridge thing, but the rest of it, you can basically make sense of any of that, right? I mean, in the chaos of this, as everybody's trying to like just smush across, trying to throw a watermelon through a hose, right?
yeah,
It's everything's getting bogged down there, and it's going to be absolute chaos.
yeah.
And Maxentius is killed, and his
And
forces get
once he
routed.
dies, there's no reason for the rest of the Romans to fight.
Yeah. Well, is the with the Praetorian Guard, his Praetorian Guard stays loyal. They die, I think, on the shoreline.
Yeah,
They won't even quit.
probably because they would have
They
been executed if they hadn't.
Yeah, they're like, forget it. We're going
Yeah,
down either way, so let's die fighting, which is good show. Um, and yeah, and that's it. Constantine's won.
yeah,
And goes and enters Rome in triumph.
yeah.
Is is
Right down. I
welcomed.
mean, he follows the route in, so that's where his arch goes up. That's he follows the route right from past the Circus Maximus, and in the Colosseum would have been big and glorious, and so would Nero's statue, I think, right next to it, which comes down. But
Yeah.
I don't think it's down at this point. It's yeah, he's the victorious general, and that is shown on the arch in a couple of these plaques. It does show him as the victorious general. But this is why I wonder, if even a little bit of the Christianity, even
Sorry,
if
I'm
some,
laughing. If anybody can hear that over my microphone, that is cannon fire going on
oh yeah,
out my
because it's Friday.
window.
Yeah,
It's
Citadel has its
Friday.
parade on Fridays afternoon. I forgot
I
about
don't know
that.
if that got picked up, but sorry if it
Oh yeah,
did.
well, Constantine up there. Somebody
Constantine, fire
up in heaven,
by this
he's
sign,
shooting
I
his
was
cannons off.
successful.
That's it. Yeah, I was successful. But I mean, I wonder if even if the Cairo, removes certain numbers, any weakness in those lines out, or in the formations out along the river. If Maxentius thought he had some strength at the beginning, he also knows that as soon as they break, they're going to falter. Because if he's had
Yeah.
to take his units down in numbers because he's had defections of Christians, or if he's had the Christians remain in the army, but just as soon as everything starts weakening, they jump to the other side. Any of that is going to mean the end of his army, and
Yeah.
yeah, he can try to get across. Um, I was just reading Maxentius described the bridge and describes the death as the bridge in the rear was broken down at sight of that battle. At sight of that, the battle grew hotter. The hand of the Lord prevailed, and the forces of Maxentius were routed. He fled towards the broken bridge, but the multitude pressing on him, he was driven headlong into the Tiber. Well, thanks for that.
Good
That is the
information.
longest description of nothing. It
The
tells us
hand,
nothing. Yeah, the bridge
the
is
hand of the Lord
broken,
prevailed. Done.
and so Maxentius, Maxentius goes into the water.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
The
Thanks.
hand of the Lord prevailed. Can't
Right.
argue with that.
Yeah, what prevailed? The Lord
And
prevailed. The hand of the Lord.
yeah,
Uh,
and this is part of there's a lot of reasons why we don't know a lot about this battle, right? One is it's so far back, and so
yeah, yeah,
having sources is automatically, just by the vagaries of time, reduced quite a bit. We also have the fact that there was an effort to erase Maxentius's memory. That automatically destroys a lot of records of what was going on his side of things, because there is he was condemned to the damnation of memory.
yes.
So they actively tried to erase all that. All his legislation was undone, and again, like everything, it was like he'd never existed. Right, that's the point. So we lost a lot there. But then the other thing is that this event is so quickly crystallized
Yeah,
into kind of this sort of religious sacred status, this mythologizing so quickly,
yeah.
because of these these stories that he had a vision, whether or not they were true or not, like whatever was going on there, it is so quickly captured into this religious experience. And then the passing of the Edict of Milan the next
Well,
year.
and that's a good point. I mean, but it's not just that it crystallizes legend. I mean, Constantine obviously does it too, because in the Edict of Milan, 1 year later, less than a year after the
Less than a year,
battle's
yeah,
fought,
just a couple months.
yeah, he legitimizes Christianity. Now, that's the best thing we can say. He doesn't pronounce Christianity as the state religion. He himself is not a Christian at this point. He doesn't say, he just says can't persecute Christians anymore. They're going to be okay. So he
Yeah.
legitimizes them. So in a way, he also recognizes, and I think Constantine, every time I read a biography of him, there were some really good ones. I come out with this idea that he is one smart cookie. As my grandfather used to call him. He's one smart dude.
Yeah.
And he recognizes that he can now unify what was been really divided over the last decade, pretty much, um, with by building on the vision too. So there is some thought that maybe the vision isn't created until after Constantine, after the Battle of Milvian Bridge, and it's completely different. I don't accept that. I think it was. But by 313, the Edict of Milan, Christianity now is a legitimized functioning religion. And not only that, it benefits anybody for joining because the emperor is clearly a believer. And there's no question he's a believer at this point, even if he doesn't get baptized for a while. And so if you're a noble, if you're a wealthy individual in Rome, it's going to behoove you, as the old phrase, behoove you to become Christian.
Yeah.
And the religion gets very big very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, it's an explosive growth period. Once the persecutions end and we move into this kind of favored status.
Yeah.
But yeah, it isn't the official religion yet, though. Not gonna be that long off.
No, it's
that those discussions are taking place.
Yeah,
so,
I think it's his son Constantius that makes it official. Although Constantius is an Arian, we won't even get into what greets him when. Can you imagine the little priest who wanders up to Constantine and says, "So, which Christianity?"
Yeah,
and you just said, what? Look, the guy in the sky did not give me this notion that there were different branches of this religion. Well, are you Arian or are you Orthodox?
Yeah, it gets very interesting. And yeah, I love teaching those classes. Let's just start defining things.
Yeah.
Really quickly gets fun. But yeah, it has this mythological quality, and as Kelly was saying at the beginning, enormously important historically. There's no question about that.
Huge.
And yet we know so little about it, almost because it was so important in history. Like it's a strange case where its importance is probably a good part of the reason why we don't know enough about it.
Yeah.
Really, really, really strange.
In my Legends Medieval History class, which is a senior seminar I teach, this text, the Vita Constantini, when they start reading and they start recognizing, and then they put it all together. Wait a second, this is the hinge point when Christianity becomes what it becomes. It isn't before, but it will never go back. I mean, as much as Julian in his 3 or 4 years as emperor tries to restore paganism to Rome, I mean, it's not going back. And
Julian the Apostate, everybody. Good fun.
Julian the Apostate, yes.
Yeah.
Only because he was baptized as a baby. I don't think he ever accepted his own Christianity. But this is the hinge. If Constantine loses that day, I think it's completely plausible that Christianity doesn't become the major religion it does. Doesn't become the European religion it does. Let alone the fact that Constantinople isn't made. Rome doesn't move to the middle of the east of the Mediterranean. Which is entirely significant too, especially when Rome divides in later on. I mean, this is really the whole thing that sets up Christianity in one case, sets up the Constantinian dynasty, which now going to be kind of shaky because Constantius forgets to read those bits about not killing your brothers and cousins and so forth, and makes a clean sweep afterwards. Constantius II, a clean sweep afterwards. But the fall. I mean, ultimately, the fact that that there's becomes two Rome after 378, and or two parts of the Roman Empire after 378. We get the Byzantines remaining and the Romans falling into, by 376 or 476 there's no more Roman Empire, a Western Roman Empire.
Yeah, it's again, it's a fascinating moment. I mean, every moment in history is fascinating, but this one's cool stuff. So,
it is.
Is there if you could have one thing about this battle, man, what would it be? Is that an even fair question?
I want an eyewitness. For the battle proper. For the rest of it all, we could put pieces together. I want an eyewitness. I really do want an account from that tells us what is happening on the field. Why is it that Constantine gets such a resounding victory when, for all if he's even in numbers with Maxentius, which is the case, it shouldn't have been as quick a battle as it seems to have been. So, what is it about Constantine that does that? It would be nice to have something from Maxentius' side too. Just saying, why does Maxentius make these decisions? Why does he come out? Why does he go across after he's determined not to go across the river? Why does he go across the river?
Now, that's the thing I want to know. Why did you cross that river?
Yeah.
Why did you cross the river?
So, that would be nice. What about yourself? What would you go
I just said it. Why did you cross the river? That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
I want to just find me something that says that was smart. And
a few years ago, there was a word that they had found a whole bunch of Maxentius's stash of banners and other things like that had been uncovered in Rome, and I haven't heard anything more about it, so I may not have proven. This is the one where, unfortunately, if we were going to find anything on the battle, it would have been found long before the battlefield is all grown. People.
It's all built over.
It's all built over, and we don't have any. The surprising thing, we don't have any legends of things being found. A whole bunch of accoutrement, battle accoutrement being found in the making of cellars or making of the foundations of some of these buildings that we would hope we'd get. I don't think they even have an idea where the original bridge might have been, but certainly didn't have an idea archaeologically of where the pontoon bridge would have been. So,
the original bridge, we know where that is because we know where the road is.
But but I meant we don't know where the pontoon bridge is.
Yeah. If the story of the pontoon bridge is true, it's correct. Man, I don't know. If somebody out there lives in the area and happens to have battle remains in their basement, give us a shout.
Yeah, give us a shout. That's it.
Give us a shout.
By the way, that would be pretty important. So you might want to contact the local archaeological units.
But also
too.
Give us a shout first. I mean, we'll point you in the first direction.
Wouldn't it be amazing if somebody did just find a cache of horseshoes? So I don't know that the river has changed that much up there. I mean, that's always a concern too, as the riverbanks change. What about the marshes along the side? Have they solidified? Did they play a role in the battle? That would be nice to know too. It would, it's what we want every time. We want somebody to be there on the ground, like, and reporting it. This is what happened here, and this is what happened here, and this is what happened here. But it would be nice to have somebody who wasn't saying, "Well, the hand of God." Okay.
Yeah.
Now Constantine is God's chosen one. You go, what? Hand of God was a sheath? That he was carrying a sword? I mean,
hand of God, the end, and okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Absolutely. Appreciate that.
Well, this has been good. I hope everybody's enjoyed this. They're gonna kick us out.
Do you think we've ever had a podcast where we knew less about what actually happened on the battlefield?
Hopefully, we sounded kind of smart. I don't know.
I hope so too. But I mean,
we're gonna do some more that we know even less about.
Probably.
At some point, so,
well, and we did do Catalonian field, so we did have that. That sense about the
that one we actually know a little bit more about. Though.
We know we do have Jordanes who tells us about the positioning of the troops. Who tells us about who won. We don't even know who actually initiated the battle. We don't know who did. Constantine charge Maxentius? Did Maxentius charge Constantine's forces?
Constantine charged. That's my head cannon, and I'm sticking to it.
Head cannon,
That's my head cannon.
I'm not sure you want to put your head in a cannon, by the way. But,
he charged that cavalry just wiped.
And there are no cannons at Milvian Bridge. I mean that. Plain counterfactual. What if Constantine had machine guns?
And the front, his vanguard of his cavalry had come all the way from York. That's also going to be in my head. The whole time, and he's like, "You guys followed me the whole way from York. You guys get to go in the vanguard," and they're the ones who did it.
Yeah, that's your three. That's your getting back to Constantine as Leonidas.
Change my mind.
Leonidas doesn't do as well.
The Leonidas is terrible.
They're anxious.
Screwed all that up. That's a different book.
Yeah, that's a different book. The
please,
bartenders are telling us we haven't said anything anyway in this
yeah.
podcast. You still don't know what happened. Well, it's an important battle,
It's an important battle.
incredibly important. And
And
one side
if the
does
owners
have a
of
big victory.
and one side is bigger. And if the owners of Restaurant in Nerone want to have us in, we'll be happy to talk about how awesome they are.
Absolutely.
So hope everybody enjoyed this. Please do join us next time when we will be talking about the Battle of Poitiers in 1356. Not a different Battle of Poitiers. We're doing the Battle of Poitiers in 1356, everybody.
Yeah.
And as ever.
And that has a few more sources.
Yeah. Great sources. A reminder, this podcast is sponsored by medievalists.net, so the best way to support us, other than buying our individual books, of course, is to join their Patreon at patreon.com/medievalists. That's also the absolute best place to drop us a line if you have a question for our next Q&A, which is like in 3 episodes from now. Mm-hmm. So get those in. And,
we're already getting some good questions. We're generating some good ones, so
line them up. Line them up.
In soon.
Well, thank you, everybody. Cheers.
Thank you.